everybody. What's up, and welcome back to Eggs, the podcast. We are here with special guest Jason Devore. People who are punk rock fans will recognize him as the frontman of Authority Zero, but he's also just a musician in general. Also has a little solo thing going on. He's an artist. He's all around amazing dude, and a guy that Mike and I have, sort of in one way or another, been pretty affiliated with all these years, even though we didn't really know it. So anyway, it'll be fun to sit and visit with you. So Jason, welcome to the show.
Hello, guys. Thanks very much, Ryan and Mike. Good to be on the show, man. Finally.
Yeah, right. No, this has been, Mike and I were talking a little bit before the show. I mean, this has been like a little bit of a labor to get this thing to happen. I think we've been doing the show for almost 6 years. And I want to say somewhere early in those first couple of years, I want to say maybe I saw your band, saw Authority Zero in Ketchum, Idaho, I think. And after that, we had talked to the drummer at the time, and the drummer was going to put us in touch with you to see if we could get you on the show. And there's like this whole thing. So it began all those years ago, and we've crossed roads in Salt Lake City a couple times and tried to make it work, and we've just been able to get them or unable to get the moons to align. But here you are in the flesh.
Let's give them the honest truth since we're talking about it. You guys showed up with all of your gear in a truck trailer, prepared to do a great interview and podcast. And I got caught up with sound check and all sorts of madness. Kind of like today, running last minute to try and get everything put together. And then I was like, oh, man, I feel horrible.
I think for the overall content of it, I think if we were to try and force that to go through that day, it would have been less of we would have had to rush it. It would have been like, it just was better that we put it off and decided to wait. So no worries there, even though.
Oh, man, 100%. Yeah, I'd have had 1 year listening to the band before us, finish sound checking, and getting ready to jump up and race up myself. So I'm so glad it's worked out. And thank you guys for your patience as well, man.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah, absolutely. So, well, and I should say, too, I just want to add to this. Sorry, Mike. I was just going to add that we were actually going to record this last week, but you had a couple shows conflict in Mexico. We were talking a little bit about it just before the show, but I wonder maybe we could just kind of talk a little bit about that before we get kind of heavy into the interview. Talk, how was Mexico?
Absolutely, man. So I'm buddies with a guy named Roger Klein. For those that aren't familiar, he's an artist from the Southwest here in Arizona. Huge supporter of Arizona, the culture of it, the crossover between Mexico and Arizona music right there, just south of the border. He always holds a festival down there called Circus Mexicus, which is held every summer, just the beginning of June. And he's kind of like a country rock act of some sorts, but not really country, but like old folk country, I guess, combined with...
He's probably best known for Banditos. Is that the song that
I
think would be? Yeah. So if you want to look him up, that's the song to
all
look
the good guys and the bad guys,
Yeah.
So yeah, he has his own place down there called Banditos, and it's a really cool spot down there in Rocky Point, Puerto Peñasco, Mexico, that is right on the ocean, and it's just awesome, dude. What he's created down there, it's like this huge, like this massive hodgepodge of people that come down across the border, come celebrate life, music, and fun, and just have a freaking killer time. And so he's been bringing bands like myself and my full band, as well as me solo, down there for probably upwards of 5 years, I'm thinking. And it's just always great. They always take really good care of you. They put you up really nice. And it's just a fun time, like getting to talk to everybody face to face as musicians, locals, all that stuff, like the coming up here in Arizona, all of that, like from the grassroots of it. And we had a great time this time, man. It was just me solo, my friend Blake Jameson, he plays djembe with me. My live shows here around the valley. So last minute, he's like, I'm free. Hopped in the truck, and he drove down himself as well and met up with me there. And we had 3 shows. And just given the crowd size, I was impressed and surprised, happily, because the borders had just shut down in Mexico start of January or end of December or something like that. And so January Jam was what this one's called. It's called the precursor to Circus Mexicus. It's called January Jam. It got postponed because the Lukeville border was closed down. So luckily that opened up about 3.5 weeks ago. So with it being now open and the festival being pushed back a month, we were concerned, I was personally, that people might be sketched out to go to Mexico because of that altercation with, the border and everything, and be nervous about going down and getting maybe stuck in that zone and having to go an extra 4 hours to get around to the next border to get back home. But it didn't work out that way. Everybody turned up and turned out and had a great time. Great crowds, great music, great camaraderie, great suntan.
Rocky Point is definitely a spot that most people from Mesa or Phoenix area have hit up multiple times in their life. If you ever get a chance, you should go down and check it out. It's pretty cool. So,
yeah, we've been going since we were kids. So yeah.
Why don't we go back early in the days? You're from Colorado originally, and
no,
you ended up
Wyoming.
No, you're not. Wyoming. That's right.
No.
Okay. I knew it was north of here.
Yeah.
You're a skateboarder, punk kid in high school. What brought you to Phoenix, and how'd you get started with Authority Zero?
So I was actually born here in Mesa, Arizona.
Okay.
Initially, and my parents separated when I was 1, and then my mom moved to Wyoming, which she took me with her. My dad stayed here, and so from there, I lived in small town to small town, basically. Like we pretty much moved to the smallest town in Evanston, or in Wyoming you can think of, and then from there moved to one of the bigger ones in my head, being a Wyoming kid that was more expanded, which was Kemmer, Wyoming, and then from there Evanston, Wyoming. So Evanston, Wyoming was the scene in Salt Lake City punks, SLC punk, where they go across the border and they buy their beer at that spot right there.
Okay.
I used to ride dirt bikes out there and like snowboard down the hill that was like right behind it. So that's my jam.
All right.
So we would go to me and my friends that were just a bunch of skate rats. You know, we there's like 4 or 5 of us that, you know, not popular kids, kind of outcasts because it was a small town. It was all cowboys and stuff in that town. So we were just weird. You know, we were just weird. Nobody got it. Parents didn't get it. Churches didn't get it. Cops didn't get it. But we totally got it, and we extremed that as hard as possible to make sure they got it, or made it more confusing for them. So we got in a lot of trouble there, but I went to my first punk rock show across the border in Salt Lake City at a basement called the Deviate, which I saw a band called the Joy Killer there, which is Jack Grisham of TSOL.
Okay.
So I didn't know that back in the day. I didn't know anything about punk rock as far as like logistics go or history, to be honest with you. I knew a friend of mine who moved from a bit bigger of a city in a different state and ended up living with me and introduced me to the whole punk rock thing. And I introduced him more to the skateboarding side of things. So it all kind of collaborated like that as far as like growing up and the mentality of it all goes. And so we went there, went to the basement of the Deviate. It was like some of the local venues around here, now that I'm looking at it, is like a total shithole. You know, it was like this total basement, like garbage everywhere. There's no green room, all that stuff, you know. So it's like, now I get it. But at the end of the show, we got the mosh pits and all that. And we all walked out kind of bloody because it was our first experience. We were all excited. And then at the end of the show, I waited till everybody left the venue, and I stuck around, and I found some trash on the ground, and I picked it up, and I saw the singer, Jack, walking back toward the stage. And I kind of ambushed him, and I was like, "Hey, man, will you sign this for me?" I'm like, "This is the coolest thing I've ever experienced in my life, and I want to do this for a living. Like, I just want to be like what you just did." And he's like, "Oh, man, you didn't get any stickers?" I'm like, "I don't got any money, man." I'm like, this will be fine. And so he's like, "Hold on one second." And he ran backstage, and he got 5 stickers, the Joy Killer stickers, and one was signed. And he's like, "Here you go, buddy." And I couldn't believe it. I was like, my mind was blown. He was up there a minute ago with his pants off, like freaking out. And I was like, "This is amazing." You know, and I just got to meet my first famous person in my mind, you know. So it totally changed my life, literally changed my life. That show, I was like 13 years old or something like that. But from that point forward, I was like, I want to start a band for one. I was like, I want to start a band. So me and my friends started a band there in town called DEA, Deranged Egotistical Assholes. And it was garbage. It was just it was garbage. Yeah. I played guitar. I couldn't play guitar. I sang. I didn't know how to sing. My mom sang. My uncle sang. So it's in the genes, I guess, a little bit, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So it was thrash punk to the finest and fullest, you know. But I said, if I ever am in a band that's of any credibility whatsoever, I want to be like that guy. Because he was an animal. He was an animal on stage, but the kindest dude to his fans, down to like me being the last one in that venue, that he took his moment and like went and actually out of his way got me stickers and signed them rather than just, you know, he could have just signed that trash and let me on my way. Yeah. So that changed my life literally, man, forever. And I was visiting my dad back here in Arizona in the summer times in an apartment complex. And there I met one of my first friends, Jerry Douglas, who was my neighbor. And we both had long hair at the time, like not this long, but like I had longer blonde hair. He had long black hair. And there's a community pool down there. And one day in the summer when I was on vacation out here, I was at one end of the pool in the deep end. He was in the shallow end, and we both thought we were a couple of chicks. So we started like swimming toward each other. Yeah, we started swimming toward each other like it's gonna happen. It's going down. Summer lovers. And so we get closer to each other, realize it's a couple of bros, and we're like, "Hey, dude, what's up?" And we become friends, lying about our age to be cooler to the next person, you know. And then we admit we both were lying about our age, and we're actually only 13, not 14, this and that. And we became buds, like immediately, like best friends. And so we hit it off, and we spent that summer just skating around. He was in guitar class with some friends of his here in Arizona at Westwood High School. And Bill Marks and Jeremy.
Westwood High School seems to have that kind of aura to it of producing amazing musicians. It seems like there's a million bands that have come out of the high school. Am I off base there? Because I've heard that name multiple times. I didn't. I don't know. I've heard that from a lot of people that was the school to be in for a musician in Phoenix.
So I don't think as far as like what's it called? Scholastically, it was so much per se, but as far as like angst and like being a kind of a I don't want to say ghetto school, but we had like riots there, you know, like the freaking riot police came out. There was like actual riots at the school. But I think because of that, the intent with at least the style of music we enjoyed and things like that of that nature were filled within you, and you already were taking class there and learning how to play guitar and all that stuff. So you just bring in like the rest of the ruffian inside of you that's, you know, kind of been already there, and it just kind of produces musicians that come out with, you know, pretty honest bands, I'd say, at least, or like, you know, I think some of the Jimmy World guys went there. I know they went to Mountain View as well.
Yeah, I just have heard Westwood multiple times over the years, and it just seems like everyone had some sort of time frame there, which is interesting to me. But
yeah, we call it
too. And I just want to kind of talk about it. I mean, because both Mike and I are sort of from this area. Mike's from Oregon or Washington originally, but both Mike and I have lived sort of in the Salt Lake City, Pocatello surrounding areas here in Southeast Idaho and in northern Utah. Yeah. And like a lot of my family are from the Bear Lake area over in Idaho. So I'm actually very familiar with Evanston. So we're, it's funny. And so hearing you talk about some of these old clubs like Deviate and stuff like that, these were the same clubs that were wildly impressionable on me. I'm not sure. I think we're pretty contemporary in age, but, you know, by the time I was 15, 16, I was coming down from Pocatello to see Cottonmouth Kings and, you know, some local Salt Lake bands and stuff like that. All these dudes here, and they were all playing that little club, you know, and it's funny because that little club gave me the access to the bands that I was interested in, and gave me basically pushed me into the music industry in a different way, like on a tour management side. But it was also because of the access or the ability to talk to these bands that at the time were small and unknown. It was really, or I was given the opportunity to get access to people early and start to kind of make my own way in. So it's fun to hear your story. You know, I even remember we played Deviate one time with Cottonmouth Kings in Lincoln Park and Rehab.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and both of those dudes, I mean, by the next summer, Lincoln Park was the biggest band in the world. You know, it's like, and so, but the summer before it was, you know, passing out demo cassettes and stickers and all that stuff over at Deviate, you know, so it's really cool to sort of, I guess, because of our geographic familiarity with the stuff you're talking about, it's really cool to hear those parts of your story.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, and yeah, to finish up a piece on that story too, like you fast forward 20 years, maybe, no, 16 years forward from that show, the band Authority Zero had started up. You know, me and those guys that I was talking about in guitar class started a band. I was like down here for the summer. They're like, hey, you want to start a band? They wrote a song, acoustic, Bill did, and I just wrote a quick song to that song and sang it. He's like, dude, that was really cool and that was really fast. You want to start a band and be our singer? I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. You know, and I was like more into skateboarding. I didn't live there at the time. I was like, how's this going to even work? You know, I wanted to be a pro skateboarder. That was my goal in life. So music came with it, which was neat and all, but didn't really have that drive for being that guy or that was my goal in life kind of situation. But it certainly came to skateboarding. But from there, the band had started, like I say, 16 years fast forward from that Deviate show with Joy Killer. I'm in the lunch line at the Warped Tour backstage, 2007, I think it is, or something like that, or 9 or something. And there's a guy in front of me, a big guy, in like all this like vacation wear, like, the flamingo shirt and shit like that, board shorts. And he turns his head sideways. And I'm like, holy fuck, that's Jack Grisham. So it was the singer of the Joy Killer in TSOL. And I was like, no kidding, dude. I'm like, what a trip. So I had to tap him on the shoulder. I was like, hey, Jack. He's like, yeah, what's up, buddy? I was like, okay, this is going to be weird. So don't make it weirder. But so many years ago, went to your show and saw you with your other band, the Joy Killer, that I'd never heard of in my life. I just went to a punk rock show because my friends wanted to go to a punk show, and that was the one. And I saw you guys that night, and you changed my life forever. And that's the only reason I'm here. That's the reason in my mind that I'm here, standing behind you in the lunch line at the Warped Tour, performing alongside you. And it blew his mind, first of all, to hear the Joy Killer name, because half those guys, he told me, he's like, half those guys are dead. That. He's like, wow, it blew his mind to even hear the name. He's like, wow, it's been a long time since that. So it was a really cool full circle kind of moment, to be like, because because of that show and just the intensity of it and the way he treated me, it just set the course of my life of how I wanted to be living my life and the drive for now shifting to music, not just the skateboarding route and everything. So it was really powerful and impactful. So it just goes to show that, little things like that do butterfly.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because like those are the stories that you hear, whether it's music centric or art centric or any of those things. There's always these moments where some young impressionable youth, is able to meet an idol or, meet somebody who, changes them by just saying the right thing or, being open to them when they needed it or giving them advice at the moment they were, down in the dumps or whatever, it's like, so it's so important. I think just like as a kind of a life lesson, to treat people well.
As a human being, man, it goes a long way, man. It really does.
You just never know the impact you're going to have on somebody.
I've met you probably 7 or 8 times over the years in person, and I can honestly say that you have been that person. You've always been friendly to every time we've met, every time, and I just want to throw that out there that having that desire to have that relationship with your fans. I'm one of your biggest fans, and we've met multiple times in passing, and I can attest to the fact that you are that person. So
I appreciate that. I thank you very much, man. I really, I was kind of a little shit when I was a kid, and I really opened my eyes to really to focus on trying to be a better person, not like faking it or whatever, to like bullshit people, but to really look inside myself and try and see who I wanted to really be, and luckily it was, again, at a youthful age that I was like impressionable, and I was a sponge of like, okay, you kind of have a dick right now. Maybe don't do that. Yeah, maybe grow up a little bit and think about the person you really want to be throughout your entire life. And it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take steps and you to think about it, before you react. Think about things before you say anything sometimes, or react a certain way or whatever. Just try and be a better human.
Yeah, well, and it is impressive. I mean, because given whatever, level of success, in your case, in rock music and stuff like that, like, you can kind of, I mean, I'm sure you can speak to, or probably know names of guys that, maybe didn't handle it as well as you or, aren't as cool as they should be.
Yeah.
I had an instance like that where I met one of my favorite singers, and I won't say it here, but I met one of my favorite singers for the first time after I had named dogs after this guy and lived after, loved this dude for like 1,000 years. And then I finally meet the guy, and he's one of these dudes that he's like, don't touch me. I'm going to stand on my square. You can lean in and take my picture and then get out. Like,
that's the worst.
It was like, don't talk to me. Don't make eye contact, that kind of thing. And it's just like, this is not how I thought this would go down.
No, dude. And that's my driving force. Like, honestly, like when I've had situations like that for sure, especially being on tour with a lot of these bands. I've had situations like that where I'm just like heartbroken. And I'm like, it drives me further to be like, okay, a reminder of like, don't be that guy.
I think there's one other layer too. And I've noticed this a lot doing this podcast and other things like it, is people who listen to you. So whether like in your case, people are listening to your music, or in our case, people are listening to this podcast, or we're listening to other podcasts, you start to build this mental picture of a person in your mind of who they are. And you almost feel like you know who they are, right? Before you get a chance to even meet them. Sure. I noticed this, especially like with podcasts I listen to, right? I had, I would listen to, Adam Carolla's show a lot. And then I finally met Adam Carolla, and it was like, wait a minute, we're not friends. Like, we knew each other, and like we have all this stuff going on, and I know where you're at and who you're talking to and what you're doing. But it's like, wait a minute, you don't know me at all. And so
you feel like you do though. Like when the person's that personable and like that hey man, we're all people here. You're like, hey, what's up, man? How you doing, Adam? It's like, wait.
It's like, what? Who are you?
We should probably talk about who you actually are and get to know me and you as well.
Well, and especially with music, because I think music, maybe, definitely in my mind, more so than a podcast, music really touches people in a different way.
Absolutely.
Like there's sort of this universal language of music. And even if you don't understand the words or can't speak the words or whatever, like, I mean, there's something about just the vibration and everything else that we can all bond over music. And so I think there's an even tighter connection like that, where the front man of your favorite band is like your God, right? Or can be. And so when you do have an opportunity to meet that person, when it's a real letdown, it can be a very serious letdown. So I really appreciate your attitude about it.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it can ruin your life, and it can really be like question your whole life living, like all of it. You know what I mean? You're like, my God, I've been following this guy's footsteps for so long, and I've been fucking blowing it. because he's an asshole and whatever else. I've gotten lucky in that regard, man, too, with my idols that I grew up listening to and listening, and since having met and befriended at this point now, that they've been super cool, superheroes, again, just inspiring, even past beyond the musical realm, like, Pennywise. I met Jim for the first time, and those guys back when I was a kid, again, like, I think it was in Salt Lake City. I snuck into one of the first Warped Tours backstage, and I went to their bus. I tracked it down and snuck onto the bus. They were doing like a meet and greet, and by the time I finally snuck on, they were kicking people out, and I saw Jim in the back of the thing, and I was like, I gotta say something to him, fuck. And I'm all, Jim! And I screamed Jim out loud to the bus. He like turns around, looks like almost like eye to eye, and I'm like, fuck. Hi, and I was like, I just want to let you know how much your music changed my life. It means a lot to me. I love your positivity. It means the freaking worlds. I gotta go. And that was pretty much it. So then, you go fast forward throughout a few more years, not just as a fan, but now we're on tours with them and talking to them. And I don't tell that story right away, of course. It's like you hang out, you just kind of like naturally want to become a buddy with the guy and those guys, and then of course down the road I explained, I think I told Fletcher about that story. We were drinking one night. We were drinking on the bus one night in Europe, and I got there super late and wasted. And I told him that. He's like, "Are you serious?" Like, because I didn't give off the impression of like starstruck him, I guess, to him.
Yeah.
Just like, I want to be your buds. I really want to hang out with you guys and get to know you. Let's just kick it, And I told him that. I almost felt like his eyes shift in a different way.
Do I need to be nervous?
Yeah, he's like, so you're just a kid. So like, you're a fan of the band more than anything, one of those kind of things.
Well, so it's funny. I mean, because actually, Mike and I have a story about you and Pennywise also. I mean, we came down years ago at the Saltaire here in Salt Lake City.
Yeah, that was a good show.
We were playing with Pennywise, and we came down to see you. But Mike was working for a radio station here in Pocatello and was able to snag some credentials to get an interview with Pennywise. Okay. So we were able to get back and meet Pennywise. We also touched base with you guys, and but that was just right here in Salt Lake with you and Pennywise. And also it's my birthday today, and Pennywise is playing up by Mike's place.
Happy birthday,
dude. It's kind of a small Pennywise world today. Thanks so much, brother. Appreciate it.
Yeah, dude. Right on.
I've got a signed skate deck hanging on the wall back there from Pennywise from that show. And so it's small world. Like we said, we've crossed paths multiple times over the years, and just it's small fun stuff like that really kind of, your band in particular kind of sticks out in my mind, because we've always, I've worked with a lot of local bands in Phoenix. Experiences like that have happened multiple times, which is really great. We've talked about like the start of Authority Zero and how you met. Can we talk about that first album that kind of like put you on the roadmap, The Passage in Time?
Certainly.
I think that was like the time frame that I first came across you guys, and out of all the albums, I think that's the one that kind of sticks out to me. I love the title, and B, the songs on it are great. Can you maybe talk about the recording process and how things changed after that for you guys?
Yes. So we recorded that album with Dave Jordan. He's out of California, out there in Burbank. And so, where do I start with this whole thing? So we were a local band specifically for 7 years before this whole thing came about. So I think that's why our longevity seems weird to people that it's been 30 years this year, because we started really, really young. And not a lot happened for 7 years. We were just a band playing a shitload of house parties, basements, schools. We go plug in like just by ourselves and try and draw people in, just making noise, that kind of thing. So we had recorded some demos. At this point, we'd released 2 EPs, 2 little local things here that our guitarist Bill's mom and dad had fronted us $1,000 to record. So it was like a 2-day, 1-take kind of thing called Live Your Life. And then from there, we're like, okay, that's fun. And there were some songs on there that were good. And then we're like, well, we wrote some more songs, one being what would come to be our biggest hit to date, One More Minute, which is the reggae kind of song, which we weren't really a reggae band, which is interesting how that all happened. We had influence,
That's actually one of those things I love about you guys is because you're very punk, very, like not reggae, but you went there. Sure. And it's weird that crossover works so well. It
was interesting. Yeah, I think with that, with that song, Bill brought it to me, and I was like, if it's not fast, I don't want to hear it. I want to skate to it. If I can't skate to it, it's not good. That's my mentality as a kid. I was like, but he brought that to me, and he was really big into blues and funk and stuff like that. The whole band was very eclectic in our different stylistic personalities musically, and so he brought that to me. I'm like, what am I supposed to do with this? I'm like, I have no idea where to start, even, to be honest with you, and. There was a lot of influence around the time with the Sublime stuff happening and like things of that nature were popping off too. So I was influenced by that around the time too, vocally, and it really opened a door for me to be like, oh, I kind of get it. It's like, so I started experimenting, and I came to practice one time, and I was like, I got it. Check this out. And then, without trying to go the typical reggae route, I think the inner punk or whatever you want to say in me, like, found a new way to do it, but differently, to where it did make sense with the music we were already writing too. It was kind of aggressive at the same time, pretty, but it also had like a cool collaboration of both of those items that gave it some kind of intensity in some way, And so with that, we wrote that song, wrote another song called Sky's the Limit, and we had a local friend here named Derek Seidensticker. We still do. He's a radio DJ on 106.3 and 100.3 The Edge here in town back in the day. And he was, now it's 103.9.
Okay. All right.
And a lot of, it's changed so awful much, but it's a lot of the same people running it and DJing there and stuff of that nature. And so his stage name is, or his online name is Craven Moorhead. And so he would have a thing called Backyard Bollocks every Sunday, where he would play all punk rock stuff, ska punk show. He had like 3 hours to play all the ska punk stuff. And people would circle around the radios, like back then, like just like turn on the radio, just, that was the thing. And he did one local band every week. And so I was like, guys, we got to get on the show. Like, you have no idea how it's going to change our lives. Weirdly, it actually did. And so we recorded one of these demos and took it down to the station and slid it under the door. Like, literally, I took it down there to the station in Phoenix, slid it on the door. And I kept calling and didn't get a lot of response immediately. But then when I did, he got back. He's like, hey, I really like you guys. You remind me of some old Descendants. And I was like, okay, sure. That sounds great. Then let's do it. Let's play it. I don't think so, but I love it. Because I love Descendants. So he did it one night. I remember, I'll never forget, we were in my drummer Jim's house, circled around his boombox, and just freaking out. It came on, he introduced us. We were like, we couldn't even hear what was going on the radio. We were freaking out so hard. But that happened, and then we stayed in contact, and then we come to find out he can record music as well as home studio. So we go from there, fast forward a bit, we go to his house and re-record One More Minute, which came out on a thing called Patches in Time, which was before A Passage in Time, which was about 6-7 songs, and we recorded Sky's the Limit as well. So when we did that, he then took this much better recording to the program director of The Edge, Nancy Stevens.
Yeah.
Nancy, yeah. And so I saw her last week too. It's like we're still on touch and buddies. It's crazy, man. Fast forward so many years later, it's weird. Yeah. But we did that, and he showed it to her, and she's like, this is really cool. She's like, all right, I'll give it a spin. Why not, So she played it on primetime radio for us. And I was like, what the fuck is happening right now? And then people reacted to it locally, like, who is that band? And that was cool, and people were, like, drawn in a little bit. And then we released One More Minute locally. and people went fucking nuts. It was crazy. Like the response we got from that, dude, like the calls they would get into the station, I guess. Excuse me for that, guys. The calls you would get into the station, they would get in the station, like to hear it again, asking about the band's name, all these things. It was over the top. And so with that, we started drawing a really big local fan base. And from there, they kept on getting spins. It kept on getting more spins, you know, because of the interest. And then record labels have these charts that show that radio plays that are what bands are popping off, who's playing what, what's going on, who's signed, who's not signed. We were one of those bands getting a shitload of airplay in one town that was not signed, and it raised their interest. So we first heard from label Universal Republic Records, and that was just mind-blowing right there. It started tumbleweeding really quickly. They put out an offer to come out and see us, and they came out to see us, I'm sorry, and then put out an offer. And we're like, all right, well, we'll give it some thought. We had decent management. We had good management at the time, actually. It was Brad Patrick with Bling Bling Management. They also managed Jay-Z back then. We got that. We were like, what the hell is going on right now, dude? Yeah. And they were friends with he was friends with Nancy Stevens, so she was like, I got this guy that could probably help you guys get managed. And like, we were like a fun project for him. Like, he thought it was cute, you know, kind of thing. And like, he's like, oh, you guys are really trying, man. I got you. Don't worry. I got the money. I got the back. I got the politics and the ideals behind all this legal stuff. So it was freaking awesome, dude. And so they did that. Then all of a sudden, Lava Atlantic Records also then reached out showing interest. And so then they came out, wine and dined us. They wanted to come see a show, which they saw at the Electric Ballroom back in the day. And it was sold out. And they were like, okay, well, we want to think about this a little bit. And then they went back. They're like, oh, it might be a fly-by-night kind of thing with this local band, and it'll be over soon. But it kept happening, which was really cool because we really pride ourselves on our live show, and especially when things started happening more, we give it 250%. And so we made sure people stayed paying attention, had a great time, and wanted to tell more people about the band. And so from there, with the radio still playing it, they came back out again, and they presented an offer to us. And it was just a better all-around offer than Universal had offered us as far as like our ability to do what we wanted to do. The leniency with like not the label stuff you hear about all the time with like once you sell your soul, you have to do all these things specific, you know. They seemed less that way. I won't say they were completely that way, but they seemed less that way to us as a bunch of kids. And it was a pretty killer deal. And it was a 2-record deal for Passage in Time and Andiamo. And so then we kicked the tires and lit the fires, and it was off to the races, dude. Like, we'd never been on tour, really. We toured Mexico for like a week or so, you know, or not toured, but played down there in Rocky Point for like the weekends or a week or two. And it was for free for booze and food, basically. So now it's a new ball game completely. They're like, we need to shoot a video. We need to get you guys in the studio. We need to get this thing going. So we did. Shot that music video for One More Minute at Brad Patrick's house, our manager's nice, expensive house. And
I watched that this morning before this interview, and it's amazing to me that you look like you grew like 4 feet since that video. You seem much taller.
Cool.
I don't know what it is.
Don't go the other way as you get older.
Yeah. But I mean, that had to be a trip, like going from, you know, just your own local draw to now you're shooting a music video for MTV, and it like being that person in front of the camera changes things. So I'm sure like psychologically and like whatever was going on in that time frame had to be a real trip for you to go from what the hell is going, you know, like
it was
what is going on right now, you know?
We'd been a band for 7 years, like this local punk band nobody gave a shit about. Cause we weren't even a punk band. We were like a band that like was punk rock in our own right because we didn't do what punk bands were doing. We didn't play the, you know, we didn't have the same influences like the other punk bands. Like we want to sound like these guys or that guy. We just all like listened to like Chili Peppers, you know, Pennywise, Bad Religion, Operation Ivy, Rancid, all those guys too. But then Metallica, Megadeth, and hip hop. Yeah, that was our band. Like as a hodgepodge of like that's our band. We're like, how do we make this work? Oh, I know. We just do whatever we want. We play all the things that you want to play, that I want to play, and we make it work. And that kind of initially created our sound. So yeah, from there we were like, okay, 7 years later, now it's like, now we're getting started. You know, it's like now your journey's begun. And all that was like warm up, which is great because we were not good. We were not good in the beginning. Like it was like one of those, we need to get signed. We need to get signed. Like, no, we didn't. We did not need to get signed back then because it would not have been a very good thing. So I think it was all for a purpose, you know, all the leading up to it and learning. So just once again, the patience and like, things happen when they're supposed to kind of thing. And that came about, and shot the video, and then recorded that video also at Alice Cooperstown locally here too for the live stuff.
Yep.
And then the ghetto stuff back where we grew up in Mesa at our Mr. Nixon mascot friend's house with all the 40 ounces and stuff like that in the waters. And so we did that, and then we hit the ground running, man. We went on tour for that first year, was like at least 3/4 of the year, like straight. For a band that's never toured before, it was incredibly insane.
Yeah.
I was nervous
and
about
it's
my
funny,
voice.
it's really cool to hear, some of this stuff too. I mean, also the connections with like Nancy Stevens and stuff like that. I mean, these people went on to play big roles in our life later, mine and Mike's. So it's cool to hear this. But like, so about the same time that Passage in Time was coming out, and by then I was touring with Cottonmouth Kings. I was working with some of their smaller acts like Mix Mob and some of these guys. They just signed with somewhere in that time period. They signed with Funk Junkies, who were sort of Phoenix, native also, and sort of Phoenix royalty. Mm-hmm. And so you guys, I mean, obviously being a big name in Phoenix, but your band came to my awareness in the sense that you too were sort of Phoenix royalty, right? You guys were the big dog in Phoenix when we were playing through there, right? So we're playing places like Bash on Ash and the Big Fish Pub and these little, little ghetto dumps with these
stomping grounds, dude. That's where it all started.
Yeah, right. And so, so it's cool to just kind of see how these parallels have sort of run side by side, through all this time. You guys are, building the anti-punk band, and I'm running around with these hip hop guys, but we're crossing roads, and so kind of like Mike, I started to get the awareness of your band about that time, and I'll let you keep going on your story because I don't want to interrupt it too much, but I'm just thinking of all these crossovers or these like parallels. I mean, it's like the three of us are like kindred spirits without even knowing it. And so it's kind of a wild thing when I'm hearing the story you're telling. And I mean, like Mike and I were involved in a Phoenix TX reboot that was run by Nancy Stevens.
I remember that.
We were involved with a bunch of bands from down there, Mink Rebellion and Hawthorne Heights.
Yeah, oh my God.
All these other dudes that were bands that Mike was promoting in Phoenix, and we're playing at.
So we were talking a little bit in Salt Lake when we met up, right? We were talking, like, hey, this is kind of how we know each other. And Edgefest 2005, I was kind of managing Mink Rebellion, quote unquote managing. I was just doing a bunch of stuff for him. And Nancy Stevens was really big with that band at that time, and they ended up opening at Edgefest. And I ended up going to a local high school, getting a video crew of 2 or 3 students that had cameras from the school. We snuck them into Mink Rebellion's trailer, and we were on stage for that whole day. Social Distortion was playing, you guys were playing, Mink Rebellion opened, and we were able to kind of like hang out on stage for that whole show. And I wanted to bring up the level of energy that you guys have at a live show that is just mind-boggling. And at that show in particular, you pulled the Eddie Vedder move, and you climbed up the light rig, and you were dangling over the crowd. And I know that there is footage of that out there, and I tried to find it just to see if I could. I reached out to the kid from high school and on LinkedIn of all places, trying to get in touch with him, get that footage for you.
I remember saying to you, I was like, if you find that footage, dude, let me know, because I have no idea where it's at. But I know it's like before the golden age of phones and cell and stuff, really, because, it was like right around the time it was happening, I guess, more so. But it wasn't a very popular thing.
Yeah, but I mean, like you guys were, you leave everything on the stage, like you come and you just leave it all there. Your drummer had like a 4-foot mohawk, and it was just like you stood out as the band with energy, and it obviously related to everyone in the crowd, because every time I've seen you, it's been amazing. So
thanks, man. That was actually this was Edgefest right here.
Oh damn, okay. There it is.
That was the Edgefest final moments of my life.
I love that. That's crazy.
So I just looked over and I knew what we were talking about. I was like, wait, I think I have an image of like at least that ending. My dad took that photo.
I have the set list from Mink Rebellion for that show that is in a box back there somewhere, but it's it's pretty crazy. That's all the times we've passed like that.
Yeah. Well, so maybe, anyway. Sorry to derail a little bit, but maybe we start getting into the next phase, which is basically the second album. So Andiamo comes out. I think there's a little bit of a different tone. You guys feel a little bit more mature by then.
Sure.
The album itself maybe is a little bit more refined or a little more, I don't know, produced maybe than the first.
Which is weird.
And you guys had come a ways. So, maybe we talk about that.
Which is kind of strange that it sounds more produced, because it does sound more produced. And it's funny because with Jordan, that's when the label threw all sorts of money at him, because he's a big name producer. He's a Chili Peppers, Social D, all these things. And I'm not talking trash on him. I tell the story to everybody, but he was a very in and out producer. He was like the guy that came in, his name was on it. He looked cool. He looked like a Rolling Stone. He came in there, like, would sit on the couch for a minute and go, "No, it sounds great." And that's like an ongoing joke. Like, I'd be behind the microphone. Some of these songs, like Makes the Town and Super Bitch, I wrote when I was like 17 years old. And I'm like re-recording these songs for a professional level. And I'm like, I'd sing the songs and we play them and everything was just fine. We're like, we're fucking awesome. There's nothing we need to change about these songs. My lyrics are money. I'm like, this guy thinks it's great. I'm like, didn't know we had it in us. So it's like, but it wasn't really the case. He was just very nonchalant about, no, that's what you guys want to do. That sounds great. I'll just twist some knobs and make the sounds that I do, put my name on it, and we'll be good to go. So it was like a very overproduced with there's like 10 layers of guitars on every song. But it's it's kind of very washy, and they're all different sounds that it sounds like it's just really airy in comparison to Andiamo. Andiamo was like Ryan Green, who's the guy that I wanted to really produce with a lot because of the Fat Record stuff.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you about that later. So
yeah, the really punchy kick drum, the really refined vocals, all these things. And so we finally got him on that one alongside with Miguel, who produced Sublime's 40 Ounces of Freedom. And so we got those two producers together. And it was funny to watch because Miguel is a very, he likes to smoke. He's a Sublime crew, you know what I mean? He likes to hang back and like loose and effects and all these things and nothing really refined. Ryan is like that. He's like, that, what the fuck are you doing? Like, he's like, there's a couple looks in the studio. I'm like, what do you think? It's like you become the middleman between the two producers with completely different eclectic styles that made sense for our band because we didn't make sense. So it was the best experience, man, with that too. And I think that's what developed with those songs, and that's where Revolution was stemmed, our next single off that record, which that one in Over Seasons, I think. Or was that the first record? That was the first
record. Yeah.
Yeah. So Revolution came off on this record. I think, we've been on the road. We've been like through the grind a lot at that point with hitting us so hard. We really started kind of finding ourselves, I guess, more as a group rather than just being like, oh, what are we even doing? We just play and jam.
Well, and I would say too, there's also a little bit, and maybe you can speak to this, but like on Andiamo, there's a little bit of a theme that starts to develop too. Around Revolution is one of my personal favorite. 1,000 Years of War is on there.
Yep.
You've got a cover of Mexican Radio.
Mm-hmm.
The Painted Windows is up there too. Like all those are starting to feel, I don't know, there's sort of like this Mexican revolutionary kind of thing. And, which is funny because you have an American flag on the cover of the album, but it's like, but it starts to feel like a revolutionary piece, right? Like now I wouldn't call it political, but there's this bent to it that didn't exist on the prior album.
No, there is a hint to it, of course, in there. And that's the way I've always, and that's the thing with even with the front cover with the American flag, it's a Norman Rockwell recreation of one of his paintings, Gone Swimming. Or Go Swimming, or Gone Swimming, and he's Gone Swimming. And it was so cool, the artist we worked with, I can't remember his name right now, it's in there somewhere, but instead of a towel the kids were running with, it was an American flag, because it was like a sign of distress. It was like a tattered American flag, like, shit's fucking crazy, 1,000 Years of War, there's like wars going on all the time, obviously. But, between the four of us, mostly myself and Bill Marks, my guitarist at the time, original guitarist, he's a very intellectual, you know what I mean? He's like very honed into like world events and things of that nature. And he majored in Spanish, so a lot of the Spanish influence came from him directly, and along with our trips to Mexico and just being in the Southwest. So all of that conjoined with our angst of like being, crazy on tour, exhausted, like learning things throughout the world, being on actual tour and like seeing things for the first time, firsthand around the world. A lot of those ideas came to mind with my writing abilities for that one, rather than just like the girlfriend who broke up with me. I got to live my life. What to do? It was more like shit got a little more real and eye opening, I guess. And so, with all the lyrics on that album too, as with any lyrics, typically I'm not the big "let me tell you how it is." this is my belief. You need to follow this, or you're anti this and that thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's more of a think about it. You know, think for yourself. Like, here's how I feel. It's an inner revolution as well as an outer revolution, and it all starts with you. Depending on whatever it is in your life that you want changed, you got to fix it within yourself and make moves yourself to make those developments and things occur and happen and come to fruition. So that's all. That's actually completely what revolution was about to me in the beginning, was a change within myself. If you want to change, you got to make a difference on your own, and from there, the world will grow around you, hopefully, and things will, be brighter, and make different moves. But from there, when we started the production of the video for that, obviously revolutionaries came into play as an idea and a concept. With, you got Sid Vicious, you got Malcolm X, you got Mother Teresa, you got Dali was in it. It's all these characters. We wanted to then be more well-rounded with the idea of politics in the arts, politics in, within yourself, social, all these things too, like your music, all these things, and just conjoin them into one hodgepodge of a message, I guess. Yeah. And so with that, 1,000 Years of War came. That's pretty much like the most direct song, that we've written. It's like, it's just ongoing and never stops. What the hell, man? It's like round and round we go. It's like, when's it going to stop? Probably not. It's like you hope so, but it's just the ways of man, and unfortunately greed and politics and that nature too.
Yeah. And I think that song too is also indicative of this like hodgepodge of punk rock and everything else that you're talking about, is that, it's got thrashy, punky moments in it, but then it also has kind of this little rhythmic section in it too.
Yeah.
And, catchy little hook and stuff. And so I think that one feels, sort of like the, one more minute of this album, right? Like,
yeah,
it starts to have kind of that, crossing genres. And I think also, maybe that adds to its appeal a little bit, right? Maybe people who aren't looking all thrashy all the time hear that hook and can sing along with it,
And that's my thing. I've always been, as long as I can remember, dude, I've always loved a good sing along. Like, I'm talking like Bouncing Souls, stuff I can sing to. So that's been embedded in my DNA growing up. And I think that's almost like the first thing I write when writing a song is the hook or whatever, or the anthematic thing, which sometimes anthems are anti-punk or whatever, whatever. But so it's like, but that's my thing. I love a big, good sing-along, a good melody, something that I can go like this to the audience, and it's like 2,000 people, 20 people, 30,000 people are singing it back, and just feeling the whole intensity of what the song, basically what the song actually encompasses. And I say all my shit in the verses, but what I actually mean in the whole is this thing right here. So the broad picture of it is all in this little group of things that you can also sing along with and feel within yourself and be liberated with.
So you talked about working with Ryan Green and how focused he is and how the Sublime guy was. And you've had the opportunity to work with a lot of producers over the years, Ryan Green, Bob Hogue,
Cameron Webb.
I'm sure that what was that?
Cameron Webb. He's one of the biggest ones of late, man. Yeah, he did The Tipping Point. What's the last one we did? Oh, Ollie Oxenfree.
Okay.
And Bill Stevenson and all those guys at the Blasting Room, man, they're so great too.
So I met Ryan Green through Vaden, and I worked with a band called Black Box Burning that was going to go through his studio, and the funding kind of fell out of place. So I've met him, and I've met Bob in passing. From going through the studio process, what are some things that you kind of gleaned from that process that made you guys a better band? Do you think that you've pulled bits and pieces here and there from each guy to kind of make you who you are today?
Absolutely. I mean, they've all got their own little tricks and their own little ways that things should be done that they feel is the best way. And you really do take little bits and pieces that you're like, oh, right. Even all the way down to tempos, like drummers. Sure. I remember, drummers throughout the years, like, slow it down, it'll be faster live. So, think about that. It's okay if it's faster live, but if it's slower live, you're kind of failing. So if you want to pull it back a bit on the record, it'll still be intense, trust me. But, if it's faster, then you'll be playing it live. It's going to sound like a downer. So little things like that, vocal techniques, not a whole awful lot. Just do it again. And Ryan's big thing was, I always say at the end of my album, I'm like, how was that? He's all, not bad for you.
Let's try it one more time.
And then I know what that meant. I knew he was going to push record again, and I'm right back in line, right back behind the microphone. So it became a common language with all of that, and it lightened the mood. Let's say after 7 hours of singing the same shit over and over again. Yeah. So it made it fun, and it's just everyone's got their own thing. Bill Stevenson, with the Blasting Room from Descendants, he's the drummer of Descendants. For those who don't know, working with him, he's a drummer, but I worked vocals with him. He's a vocal guy, and so he's like really good at harmonies, this and that and the other thing, and he would refine my vocals to be like, okay, wait, what are you trying to do there? I don't get it. I'm like, I'm trying to do la ha 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 ha. He's like, okay, you're not doing that. So let's do that again. And I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? I just did that 17 times. And then I would refine it a little bit and like really focus on the notes rather than just what I thought was doing in my head. And I would nail it. And I'd be like, oh, okay. And that's a learning moment for me. So take that into consideration, Jason, next time you're doing a record or vocals or whatever. So yeah, little things like that, man. Honestly, all the way around with the guitar and bass as well. All those things kind of came into play. Just each specific producer's styles, something always rubs off on you that you take home with you.
You're actually, I just saw you post something earlier today about it, that you're going to be starting to record a new Authority Zero album, but you're doing it yourself this time.
What we're doing is the guys came into town. It's our 30-year anniversary, like I said earlier. So for that, we wanted to do something special for the fans. And we couldn't think of, there's like the box sets, but unfortunately, because of the big record deals back in the day, Atlantic Records still owns our first 2 records.
Oh.
So we are not, it fucking sucks. And so we're not able to do the box set thing, especially with our first 2 albums that came out as the most prominent ones, putting us out there.
You're going to have to do Taylor's version.
Yeah, we record them and put them out. We've talked about that, but we'll see what happens. When that came up, I was like, I like the idea, so we can have it for the kids to listen to and buy at the table. But there's something very special about what was done back then with those records, the people involved. Because things have changed in the band, people have moved on and things like that, and so there's something very, very, time, space, and all that with that album, the first 2 albums that I almost wanted to keep just locked up as that, in a little capsule. So we'll see. We're always trying to move forward with things too, and just keep on writing new music and keep people interested with new stuff, even though everybody hates new stuff. But we're stoked to write new stuff. Nobody wants to hear new stuff; they want to hear old stuff. And I get it. I'm kind of the same way with my, as being a fan of bands. So with this record, what we're doing right now, we didn't set out to write a new record. We set out to write a 5-song LP. We'd never done a 7-inch vinyl before, and we're like, that'd be a fun table item for the kids, something for the 30 year. We'll make some new artwork. It'll be something special to commemorate the year. And then we got together for 8 days. And I had a bunch of ideas backlogged in my little iPhone thing, whatever, with some chorus hooks and melodies, intent with, lyrics and stuff like that, and some guitar things. So when we got in there, I was like, all right, who's got something? What do we got? We wanted to get all of us, for the first time since back in the day, we got together as a 4-piece band and wrote these songs. So last record was me and my bassist Mike. He wrote the entire thing. He played guitar on it even. And before that, it's always been 1 or 2 or 3 guys, essentially. So this is the first time getting this crew of people into the band room and let's see what our band actually sounds like. What is Authority Zero 30 years later with what's going on? Not what we think it should be or the fans think it should be. What is this band? And so we started writing, and it just we started writing a song a day, sometimes a song and a half. And our intention was 5 songs, maybe 6 actually. And then every day, by day 5, we already have 5 songs. We're like, let's keep it going. We got 4 more days before you guys got to fly home. And we had 9 songs by the end of the session, which we had 8 days in total. Okay. And so I'm like, we're almost to a full record, guys. I'm glad we kind of put ourselves under the gun here to do something for this year specifically, because now we're well on our way to writing our new record that we can put out 2025 spring probably. And with that, we'll be recording in April with Cameron Webb again, who did The Tipping Point and Ollie Ollie Oxenfree, our last record. We'll be getting that finished up out there and then putting that out sometime in July with 7-inch.
Love that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great. Well, and really cool that you guys were able to kind of pull that back together for this year or for the 30th anniversary. I mean, it's wild to me because I guess your anniversary shows our age, so it's making me very introspective here.
Telling you, man, I know, me too. When I say it out loud, I told Roger Klein 30 years, when we were out there in Mexico, because I have my 20-year tattoo right here. He's all right at the stage. He's like, what's that? What's the 20 all about? I was like, oh, that's the band's, the band has 20-year anniversary. He's like, oh, that's cool. I'm like, yeah, that's our 30-year anniversary. He's like, wait, what? He's like, my band's about to have its 30-year anniversary. And he, it was cool because he like went into, the talk of like, I told him about a future 30-year anniversary show in the end of the year here. He's like, dude, you should let my band open up for you guys on your 30-year anniversary show. That'd be awesome. And I was like, well, how fucking cool would that be? Like crossover wise, the Arizona thing, like Arizona scene, like get Jim Adkins to come play acoustic. We're good to go. It's like making a family affair.
Yeah, that would be like another one of those full circle moments, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah,
where
massive,
the teacher becomes the student becomes the master.
Sure.
So,
sure.
Really cool opportunities. So, here in the sort of the closing minutes, I mean, obviously we could go record by record and analyze this thing all afternoon. So because, like I said, I mean, both Mike and I were so jacked to do this conversation. I think we've got notes for days, so we may have to do a episode 2 down the road.
Let's go.
But let's talk a little bit about what you're doing. I mean, obviously you've got the stuff going on with Authority Zero, but I think you're also doing some solo shows and doing a little touring around yourself. Yeah. I think you've got some new art stuff going on. And I think also you've got a charity skate brand.
Okay. Yeah. With all that. So I've been working on my solo stuff since 2006. I put 3 records out so far. And a lot of those were, the first one initially was just songs I was writing that didn't, as weird as Authority Zero may be, it was never going to work with some of these songs. I'm like, it just doesn't have the same. It's like singer-songwriter, classical, something just weird. Not even like, you couldn't even hear it as a rock song or a good, maybe even full band song. So I didn't want to throw it away. So I started recording it in my buddy Brian's garage. And that, stemmed to another song, and then it became the first album. So I released that independently on my own label that we put together called Operation Records, just to have something to put it out on. So we did that, and then time came around, I started playing out a lot more. And I really essentially started playing out live and doing this acoustic thing to learn how to sing and play guitar better at the same time. So I would go out and do open mic nights and just jump on stage. Even with the stature the band was at the time, I would try and sneak under the radar and like not use the band name, just say Jason Devore or whatever, and just see how people actually engaged with my music rather than like trying to use the name that we built to get the people out to the shows. So I was really almost trying to build a new fan base with this new thing. And I have, which is really neat. And the second album came out, the third one came out just a few years ago, and I've been working on this newest record that is now coming out in May. For the last 2 years between touring, I've been jumping in and out of studios with Bob and Kristen Taylor from Underdog Studios and Flying Blanket with Bob. And along the process of recording at Kristen's, this label, Yodam Horan from Useless ID, he's a singer in that band, and he does his own solo stuff too. And he got signed by this label locally in Scottsdale called Double Helix Records. And they're like, oh, you heard this other guy, Jason Devore's like music? They're like, oh yeah, we know Authority Zero, this and that. He's like, no, his solo stuff. Like, oh, we've never had any idea that was a thing. So they looked into it and they liked it. And then they reached out to me and told me this story about Yodam. And their ideals are being very focused on local music, local label, local people doing their art, all these things of that nature. And I loved that. And so they're like, we'd love to work with you. And I was like, I haven't had a label in years, literally since Atlantic, back in the day of the band, let alone solo. I would love to see what can happen without me and my buddy just trying to push this music out as like Jason's side project or whatever, and actually put it out as an artist and a full first record almost even. The first 3 I did like a Conviction Volume 1 through 3. I was going to do 5, but then with the somewhat severing of the Operation thing and that little section of that moment in time of music, I decided to leave it at 3 and then start this one with a fresh, just full-length album. So it's called it's Jason Devore Till the Voice Goes Out is the title. And it's been a lot of fun, man. They've been so supportive. They've given me the ability to go to Bob Hope's studio and finish it up in a very, very advanced, productive way. And great artworks come together, and it's going to be fun. So it's coming out in May. As far as the artwork goes, I started doing artwork. I've always drawn and done things like that back when I was a kid, but nothing super spectacular, but it was in my blood a bit. So come COVID time, the dirty C word, all the gigs got canceled, everything got shut down. My job was being a musician. That was it. I mean, that's all I've done. So I'm looking for like, how do I get paid and like keep my house over my head and figure these things out. And plus you're going crazy, on top of that. So I was doing the online stuff and that was working for a little bit. That was fun. People were kind enough to tip and watch the shows, but then everybody started doing it. And so it was like people were trying to set their schedules for like, I got to jump over to the next guys and that gals, whatever. So I picked up the pencil and pen and I started just sketching. I think I was actually I was at a bar. I was at a bar because my wife worked at a place that was still doing the to-go orders for drinks. And so I was there because we were just hanging out and nothing else going on. Sat there and I sketched on a napkin, a fist, just like a raised fist like this, And I looked at it and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And, I was back then, I quit drinking since, but back then I was not drinking. So I was like, this is a masterpiece, So I looked at it and I was like, shit, all right. And I wrote revolution at the top of it. And I did the whole like revolution and the love backwards, with the evol part of it. And I was like, okay, cool. And I wrote lyrics on it. And then like rays of light, like coming out of it, shooting out of it, like powerful, like change. And then I put color to it. And that was like one of my first posters at prints I did. And people were so kind, like they sold out of like 50, like immediately. And I put an artist's price on them, as a new artist at least, so it wasn't super, super cheap. And people just were so supportive and kind and like, or they liked it, it was like, give me motivation to be like, maybe I'm onto something here. This is a lot of fun for me. I know that. And I really like creating. And right now I can't create, outwardly with people. This is a way to express that and get things going too. So did all that. And then that's where the art thing kind of took off in the beginning stages. And then I've just gotten more inspired as time has gone on by other artists, going to actual art shows, being invited to be in art shows with punk rock and paintbrushes out in Los Angeles around multifaceted artists through music, skateboarding, and painting and otherwise. And just learned a lot about it, gotten more inspired and taken it seriously over the last couple of years. So it's been really cool and a fun adventure. And with that came, 10 years back, a buddy that came out to my shows every now and again, that's now my buddy, didn't know him from Jack before, came out to a show in Vegas, a guy named Clay Lake, and just like was a fan of the band, didn't know this guy at all, came up with like a tray of Jägermeister shots. And we're like, fucking love this guy. Sign me up, bro. Let's be friends. So we hang out, him and I, that whole night in Vegas. Come to find out he's from Vegas. But we hang out all night, just bullshit and talk about skateboarding, this and that and the other thing. And then fast forward 5 months, I see this guy randomly pop up with a tray of shots in Austin, Texas. And I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? Where are you from, dude? Like, what is your deal? So we talk more that night. I get his backstory. He's from Vegas, lives in Austin now. His family lives there. Really hit it off, become actual friends, and stay in touch. And then one of our occasions of talking about skateboarding, we're like, dude, do you want to start like a skateboard company for fun? It's like, neither one of us can be pro skaters. It feels like right now, my limbs are broken from trying my whole life. You're not educated in the skateboarding physical side of things, but you love skateboarding. You have connections. You love this and that. We love charity. The idea of charity in mind. And art. We all love art. And so we're like, yeah, sure, let's start up a company. And we thought Earth Skateboards, the Earth with the art, the old classic art in the middle thing. We're like, oh, it's simple, it's basic. There was Planet Earth back in the day. We're like, that might be kind of weird. But they've defunct since then. So we actually purchased that name and brought that under the umbrella of things too, and just ran with Earth Skateboards. And so since then, what our whole goal with Earth Skateboards is to work with bands, artists, and charities. And it's a nonprofit organization that we make not a single dime on. We basically front the boards for bands we want to work with, have them pick the charity that's closest home to them. That way it changes it up for whatever's their demographic with, their feels and what they've gone through. And they essentially pay us back for the cost of the boards and what we had to put into it initially to get them out there. And from there, they can put it all toward the charity or take a small percentage themselves and put it toward the charity or whatever. After that, it's kind of in their arms. But it's a fun way to collaborate and be still in the skateboarding scene that, like I say, I've always wanted to be a pro skateboarder. So it's like my way personally of being able to be involved with this skate culture and things that really shaped me a lot when I was a kid, all the way down to the hard work and taking a beating, and getting back up and trying, to the art side of things and collaborations with now being able to give back in that regard too. So it would just seem like a really fun idea, and we did it very nonchalantly. And I think because of that, it's been reasonably successful in interesting, in the interest of getting people wanting to be involved and willing to be involved and participating. And, you know, we built a bit of a catalog with bands we've worked with Pepper, Pennywise, Jesse Michaels from Operation Ivy did a full art deck with us just under his name. And all of that crossover has really inspired and excited people to get their own decks done, which, again, it's only helping a lot of other people. So we're excited about that, man. So it's been all around fun life, adventure. Strangely, like very all in the same realm of the exact same thing, but different.
Yeah. Love it. That's
you
great.
know.
So I know Ryan said that we were in the last minutes, but I have one thing I want to bring up because it's a memory of mine that kind of stands out. And it was a show at the Clubhouse Music Venue way back in the day, must have been like 2007, 2008. And you had recently gone through a transition with a bass player that was playing for you guys. And you were doing, I don't know if it was like a big CD release or whatever. It was a big show. And right before your set, I think your bass player came and pulled the main breaker for the venue. And
that's right.
I mean, it was like, it's like embedded in my mind. And I've told people about the story multiple times and I don't think people believe me. So really the only reason I'm bringing it up is to get confirmation for my friends.
Get some validity on it. Yeah, that happened, dude. That happened. That was Clubhouse. And I don't remember what was going on because I was drinking a lot back then, like a lot. We were all hanging out, just living the life, you know. And so I do remember it happening. I remember all the power went out. We're like, what the hell just happened? And then I found out later on that it was Jeremy that did it, my bass player. And there was like, he was pissed. Something happened, you know, he was upset. And there was an altercation within the band. And he did that just to be, you know, just to be retaliation, you know, retaliation or just didn't give a shit anymore or whatever, I guess, you know. But that was a moment. He continued to be our bass player from then, still, after the fact, came back in or whatever. But yeah, that was a moment. I remember that very well, but not the part why it happened.
Being on the road so much and being in a band, that can be taxing on people, and being around the same person in a van for 6 weeks straight, nonstop. That's maybe something that you could give some insight into other bands and how to manage that kind of stress. Because like playing in Salt Lake one night and being in Seattle the next, I've done that and it's not easy. And that's just me, but let alone having 5 other people, you got to deal with drama and home issues and other stuff. Is there some insight that maybe you can give, parting ways, just working within a band and keeping those relationships kind of how they need to be?
All right, I have all the information. You guys want to listen real close here. All right, kids, aspiring bands, aspiring musicians, listen very closely. You need, first of all, patience. I've developed such a high tolerance for people who don't agree with me, for people's personalities that are not like mine, that clash, and for discussions / arguments. You need to be patient. You need to stop, take a breath, and listen to what the other person says before you start trying to talk over them, because you're not going to get anywhere. It's not productive. You're going to end up getting in a fist fight, and then one night you get an ultimatum between 2 guys you got to pick between. I'm not saying my personal experience, but it might be. Yeah. So you need patience. You need to certainly have understanding when people are maybe in a shitty mood, because you don't know what maybe is, like you said, going on back at home or whatever else. It's not, the band isn't your entire world. You know, there's a lot of shit playing factored into it, into your full day, on top of being underslept, on top of being tired, on top of not wanting to play that night because your fingers hurt or your voice is shot, and it's just painful to do it. You need to be understanding. You need to, consciously be kind to your band members. You know, if it's like, start the day off right. If you guys had a fight the night before, don't let it carry over to the next day in the morning. Start with something else, and then maybe talk about it now that you're both diffused a bit. later on in the day when you have alone time and there's not like a lot of shit going on. And you'll resolve a lot more problems that way, and it'll keep you tighter as a band. It'll help you not be the number one thing, which is passive aggressive. Yeah. Passive aggressive is the worst thing you can do in a band. And that's the mistake I've made time and again, because I was always the guy trying to keep the band together. We'll let this blow over. I'll put my own feelings inside and just tuck them deep down and be miserable. And, this and the other thing, and then say, oh, it's totally fine. Whatever you want, whatever you say, kind of thing. Doesn't work. Your band will break up in no time. You'll resent each other. You won't enjoy the company of each other, which is a lot. You're in a van for 24 hours a day. You're playing for an hour. You're on stage to release where you don't have to even talk to each other for 1 hour of that entire time. And that you can't really get away from being at least around them in the hotel or otherwise, except for sleep, obviously. So do that. Really find something for yourself to do to keep you occupied that's not just band related, because that will also keep your mind off of just the focus. This is all I have. I need to be driving the driving force of all of this in each individual to make these things happen consistently, because that'll give you your own peace of mind and your own solidarity inside and your own quiet time, I guess. So those are some very high skills that I've learned throughout the years that have helped me still want to be here.
I love it. Well, if all this music and art stuff doesn't work out, I think Relationships with Jason Devore is a great podcast. But I do want to want a point or two on that title.
That or Auctioneer. I don't know. One of the two.
Sounds great. Well, hey, Jason, as we start to wrap up, can we, where's the best place for people to track you down online if they want to find tour dates, if they want to listen to music, new and old? How do they best connect with you?
If you for my solo music, you can go to jasondevore.com, just my name. For artwork, you can go to jasondevoreart.com. For the band, just authoritysero.com. And for Earth Skateboards, the skateboard organization, and wanting to be involved with more of that, it's just skateearth.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, man. This has been awesome. So thrilled to finally connect.
Me the same, man. Thank you guys for your patience as well and taking the time to do it this afternoon.
Absolutely. And thanks so much to everybody who tunes into the show this week and every week. See you guys next time.
Cheers.